Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the managing director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. As the title of this video suggests, we're asking the question, when will Bangkok or Pattaya get Sandbox status? And I thought they had it before, but the vagueness with all of this and the sort of shifting sands, makes it difficult to sort of ascertain where anything sits at any given time these days. Recent article from the Bangkok Post, bangkokpost.com. Article is titled, Bangkok Pattaya Sandbox Deal. Quoting directly, tourism operators in Pattaya and Bangkok have expressed concerns about unequal opportunities to welcome tourists because they are not in a sandbox scheme as the Test and Go program is suspended indefinitely. And we've done other videos on this. Test and Go, boy, things were looking really up at the end of December, middle of December, and then that was suspended. We've now gotten further word that it's effectively suspended in the foreseeable future. Although I would make a note that we may see something similar sort of renamed pop up down the road. We've seen multiple programs that are effectively very, very similar, effectively the same thing. Sort of one will fall away and another one will pop up and it has a new name. So maybe we'll see something like that, or maybe I'm being overly optimistic. Quoting further, these operators have a negative business outlook and expect more job losses. Well, yeah. We've been, Bangkok and Pattaya have been cut off. People can't get in here and people aren't going to want to do a quarantine. For the most part, most folks don't want to go through this quarantine scheme. And then it's leading to a situation, well, anybody that is coming in, we're seeing a lot of folks rerouting through Phuket so they can avoid going through quarantine or going through traditional quarantine, if you want to call it that. But it's having, the upshot is Bangkok and Pattaya are economically neglected heavily. Quoting further, Tanat Suporn Sahas Rungsri, acting president of the Chonburi Tourism Council, said the tourism sector in popular areas such as Pattaya and Bangkok has to brace for further slowdown without inclusion in the sandbox scheme. Yeah, I think he's absolutely right. And they go on in this article to talk about how maybe a change needs to be made on this. And, I really think, again, one man's opinion, but I think it's time to really rethink this whole thing just from the ground up. If we were dealing with what we're dealing with now back in March of 2020, if we knew all the data and we knew what this thing was now, where it's even been described as similar to a cold or a flu, would we be doing all of this? Would we be closing down, like literally eviscerating our economies? I mean, I've quoted in other videos from the Bangkok Post that the estimate, GDP 2018 from tourism was an estimated 20% of GDP. And that went down to 1.67, if I recall. We were rounding up in that video. So call it 2%. It went from 20 to 2% between 2020 and 2021. I can't imagine numbers are going to change that much here in 2022 if we don't see a radical change. And meanwhile, what's the threat? It's my understanding, yes, this thing is much more transmissible, it's more virulent, but it's not more lethal. And in fact, it's substantially less lethal. And I don't want to get into all that. It's sort of beyond the bailiwick of this channel. But it does beg the question, is this the right thing to be doing? Or more pertinent to this particular video, should we seriously be looking at giving Pattaya and Bangkok, quote-unquote, sandbox status so that some tourists can get in here without having to go through prolonged quarantine and thereby effectively precluding them from coming? I mean, maybe preclude's the wrong word, but it's essentially dissuading people, it's discouraging people from coming to either of these locations. And it's having a fundamentally substantial negative impact on both these locations. At what point does this end? That's the question I would raise.